The family of four vanished hiking in Poland in 1998, a mystery that haunted investigators for over 2 decades until the unthinkable was discovered. Their disappearance left nothing but questions, theories, and a trail that went cold faster than the harsh Polish winter. 23 years later, what climbers found would send chills down the spine of even the most hardened detective. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The morning of June 21st, 1998, dawned with a deceptive tranquility over the Tatra Mountains. Peter and Anna Kowalski, along with their children Mark and Lisa, emerged from their rented cottage just as the first rays of sunlight painted the mist-shrouded peaks. Local villagers recall the family's cheerful waves as they shouldered their backpacks and headed toward the trailhead, their silhouettes gradually fading into the morning haze. They were in excellent spirits, remembers Stanis Noak, the local guide who provided them with last-minute advice about the trails. Peter was particularly excited about exploring some of the more remote geological formations. The geologist had spent months planning this expedition, meticulously marking maps and studying the terrain. Anna, despite her gentle smile, seemed more reserved. She asked several questions about weather patterns and emergency procedures, Stanis recalls. Very thorough, as you might expect from a nurse. The documentary camera lingers on a weathered map, the same one Peter had shown to Stanis that morning. A red line traces their intended route, veering deliberately away from popular hiking paths toward the more rugged, lesser-traveled sections of the mountain range. He was adamant about taking this particular trail, the guide explains, pointing to a narrow passage between 2 imposing ridges. When I suggested the family-friendly alternative, he politely declined. Mark carried his portable recording device, eager to capture the sounds of nature for a school project. Lisa, the youngest, clutched a small notebook where she planned to sketch wildflowers. The family appeared well-equipped and prepared. Thermal clothing, first aid supplies, enough provisions for their 3-day journey. As the Kowalskis departed, a peculiar phenomenon began to unfold. Villagers describe how the morning mist, typically quick to burn off in the summer sun, instead thickened around the mountain trails. It was unusual. One elderly resident notes, her weathered hands gesturing toward the peaks, like the mountains were drawing a curtain around them. The camera pans slowly across the misty landscape, the swirling vapor creating ghostly shapes against the ancient stones. This ethereal fog would be the last backdrop against which anyone would see the Kowalski family alive. The 4 figures, father, mother, son, and daughter, walking confidently into the wilderness. Unaware they were stepping into what would become one of Poland's most enduring mysteries. I remember watching them until I couldn't see them anymore, Stanis says, his voice growing quiet. Sometimes I wonder if I should have insisted they take the main path. Maybe then. He doesn't finish the sentence. The silence speaks volumes as the camera captures his distant gaze, still searching the mountain horizon 23 years later. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. When 3 days passed with no sign of the Kowalski family, alarm bells began ringing throughout the small mountain villages surrounding the Tatras. The family had meticulously planned their return for June 24th, and Anna Kowalski, known for her punctuality and responsibility, would never willingly miss their check-in time. We knew something was wrong immediately, recalls Marek Jankowski, who led the initial search operation. These weren't amateur hikers who got lost taking selfies. They were experienced, especially Peter, who knew these mountains well. Local police mobilized quickly, deploying 4 search teams into the mist-shrouded peaks. The operation expanded dramatically when National Park rangers and volunteer mountaineers joined the effort, creating what would become one of the largest search operations in the region's history. What disturbed us most was the complete absence of evidence, explains former police captain Tomasz Wójcik, his weathered face still showing traces of bewilderment 23 years later. No footprints continuing off-trail, no discarded items, No signs of struggle or distress. It was as if they had simply evaporated into the mountain air. Search dogs lost the family's scent at a particular junction where 3 trails converged. Helicopter sweeps revealed nothing in the dense forest canopy. Even thermal imaging equipment, brought in from Warsaw on the 5th day, failed to detect any human presence in the search area. By the end of the first week, the story had captured national attention. Polish television broadcast nightly updates showing images of the missing family, Peter's confident smile, Anna's gentle eyes, Mark's teenage awkwardness, and little Lisa's bright expression. The nurse and the geologist, along with their 2 children, became household names across Poland. The lack of physical evidence created a vacuum, notes Jankowski, and nature abhors a vacuum, especially human nature. Theories multiplied rapidly. Some locals whispered about bear attacks, though wildlife experts quickly dismissed this possibility. Others suggested a criminal element. Perhaps the family had witnessed something they shouldn't have. The more sensational tabloids even proposed voluntary disappearance, pointing to Peter's research grants and speculating about financial troubles. We investigated every angle, sighs Wojcik. Bank accounts untouched. No suspicious communications. No enemies. The Kowalskis were simply a normal family who went hiking and never returned. After 2 weeks of fruitless searching, with resources stretched thin and morale plummeting, the active search operation was reluctantly scaled back. Posters with the family's faces remained plastered throughout the region for years, gradually yellowing with age, a haunting reminder of the mountain's capacity for mystery. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. Anna Kowalski's leather-bound diary, recovered from her home in Krakow, offers a haunting window into her mind before the fateful expedition. The pages, filled with her meticulous handwriting, reveal a woman deeply connected to the natural world, yet increasingly troubled by something she couldn't articulate. "The mountains have always been our sanctuary," she wrote 3 weeks before their disappearance. "But lately, when I close my eyes and picture the Tatras, I feel a shadow creeping at the edges of my vision." The nurse, trained in observation and clinical assessment, struggled to reconcile these feelings with her rational mind. Friends who knew Anna described her internal conflict. "She was the most level-headed person I knew," recalled her colleague from the hospital. "But there was this other side to her, this deep respect for the old ways that came from her grandmother. Her grandmother's warnings echoed throughout her private writings. The mountains choose who they keep." This phrase, appearing repeatedly in Anna's later entries, seemed to haunt her. In one particularly striking passage, she described waking from a dream where stone faces watched her children from the mist. "Peter thinks I'm being ridiculous," she confided to the pages. "He says my grandmother filled my head with nonsense." The tension between her intuition and her husband's dismissal created a rift that widened as their trip approached. What makes Anna's premonitions particularly chilling is their specificity. 2 days before departure, she wrote about packing extra medicine for Lisa, sensing her daughter would need it. "I keep seeing her feverish, calling out about figures in the shadows. Am I manifesting my fears onto my child?" Her final diary entry, dated June 20th, 1998, reveals her ultimate decision. "I've decided to go despite everything inside me screaming not to. Perhaps facing this dread is the only way to silence it. Besides, how could I let them go without me? Who would protect them if something happened?" The documentary juxtaposes these intimate revelations with interviews from psychologists who specialize in intuition and premonition. What we often dismiss as superstition can sometimes be the subconscious processing information our conscious mind hasn't yet recognized, explains one expert. Anna's story transforms from a simple disappearance narrative into something more complex, a study of intuition ignored, of ancient warnings dismissed in the modern world. Her voice, preserved in these personal writings, becomes not just a victim's lament, but a crucial thread in understanding the mystery that would unfold in the misty heights of the Tatra Mountains. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. Anna Kowalski sat cross-legged beside the campfire, her weathered journal open on her lap. The family's first day in the Tatra Mountains had been physically demanding, but spiritually rejuvenating, at least for most of them. As she wrote by firelight, her pen hesitated over the page. "I can't explain the feeling," she confided to the journal. "The mountains have always been our sanctuary, but today something feels different." Earlier that morning, while Mark and Lisa collected kindling, Anna had discovered peculiar markings etched into a boulder. They weren't modern graffiti. These symbols appeared ancient, worn by centuries of wind and rain, concentric circles with strange angular lines radiating outward. She traced them with her fingertips, feeling an inexplicable chill despite the June warmth. "Did you see these before?" she'd asked Peter when he returned from scouting ahead. Her husband had examined the markings with professional interest. Fascinating. Could be Bronze Age, possibly ritual markings from pre-Christian settlements. But his excitement quickly shifted elsewhere. Peter Kowalski, the dedicated geologist, had become transfixed by a massive rock formation looming in the distance, an imposing structure that jutted from the mountainside like a sentinel. "It's not on any of my maps," he'd muttered, comparing the formation to his carefully annotated guides. "This shouldn't be here." The discovery lit a fire in his eyes that Anna recognized all too well, the consuming passion of scientific curiosity. Through the day, while the children explored nearby streams, Peter had photographed the formation from multiple angles, scribbling furiously in his notebook. His excitement grew with each passing hour. Now, as night fell, Anna watched her husband poring over his notes by flashlight, oblivious to the family conversation around him. The nurse in her recognized the signs of obsession forming: the forgotten meals, the distant gaze, the single-minded focus. "The mountains choose who they keep," her grandmother had often warned. The old saying had seemed like superstitious nonsense to Anna's scientific mind. Yet tonight, watching Peter's growing fixation, those words echoed uncomfortably in her thoughts. In her diary, Anna wrote of her love for these wild places, but also of a growing, inexplicable dread. Her rational training battled with instincts she couldn't explain. She detailed her grandmother's warnings, folklore dismissed by modern minds, but preserved through generations of mountain people. "Peter wants to change our route tomorrow," she wrote in her final entry of the night. "He's determined to reach that formation. I should be excited by his discovery, but instead I feel only unease. The children sense it too. Should I trust my training or my intuition? The rational mind or the ancient warnings?" Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. As darkness descended over the Tatra Mountains, Mark Kowalski eagerly unpacked his portable recorder. The young student had been waiting all day to capture the natural symphony of their surroundings, positioning the device carefully on a flat rock near their campsite. "This'll be perfect for my school project," he explained, adjusting the settings with practiced precision. His father nodded approvingly, busy securing their tent against the mountain winds. The family gathered around the small campfire Peter had built, sharing stories and planning tomorrow's route. Anna prepared a simple meal, her nursing instincts kicking in as she ensured everyone stayed hydrated and nourished. The flames cast dancing shadows across their faces, momentarily masking the growing tension in her expression. It was just after 9 when they first heard it. A low grinding sound, like stone scraping against stone. Mark rushed to his recorder, excitement visible on his face. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. "It's coming from the eastern ridge." The noise continued, developing a rhythm that seemed almost deliberate. 3 scrapes, silence. 2 scrapes, longer silence. Then repeat. "It's probably just rock settling," Peter suggested, though his geologist training couldn't quite explain the pattern. Temperature changes cause expansion and contraction. Anna wasn't convinced. She watched as Lisa grew increasingly restless, her forehead hot to the touch. The youngest Kowalski had always been sensitive, But something about this fever worried her mother. "I don't feel good," Lisa murmured, curling against Anna's side. The protective mother wrapped an arm around her daughter, feeling the heat radiating through her thin jacket. Later, as the others slept, Lisa's whimpers woke Anna. The girl was trembling despite the warmth of her sleeping bag. "They're watching us," Lisa whispered, eyes wide with fear. "The stone men. They stand in the shadows, just beyond the light. They don't have faces, Mama." Anna stroked her daughter's hair, murmuring reassurances while her own heart raced. "It's just a dream, sweetheart. Just a fever dream." But even as she spoke the words, the grinding sounds resumed outside. Rhythmic, purposeful, impossible to attribute to natural causes. Anna recalled her grandmother's warnings about the mountains and their ancient guardians, stories she'd dismissed as superstition throughout her rational career as a nurse. Peter stirred but didn't wake. Mark's recorder continued capturing the unsettling symphony through the night. And Anna sat vigilant, holding her feverish daughter, unable to shake the feeling that something ancient and patient was indeed watching them from the darkness, something that had been waiting for their arrival. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The rising sun cast long shadows across the campsite as the Kowalskis prepared for their second day of hiking. Anna Kowalski stretched her tired muscles, watching as her children packed their belongings with the practiced efficiency of experienced hikers. The nurse couldn't shake the unease that had settled in her chest overnight. "Let's explore that ridge before we continue," Peter Kowalski suggested, pointing toward a rocky outcropping. The geologist's enthusiasm remained undimmed, despite the strange noises that had disturbed their sleep. Following her husband's lead, Anna and the children climbed carefully over loose stones until they reached a narrow crevice cutting deep into the mountainside. Mark Kowalski, ever curious, spotted something wedged between two boulders. "Mom, Dad, look at this," he called out, carefully extracting what appeared to be an old backpack, its fabric weathered and faded by years of exposure to the elements. Peter examined the discovery. "Must have been here for decades," he remarked, brushing away dirt and opening the main compartment. Inside, protected by the waterproof lining, they found several items: a rusted pocket knife, a faded map similar to their own, and most intriguingly, a small leather-bound diary. "It's dated 1967, Anna said, carefully turning the brittle pages. "It belonged to someone named Helena Drozd." Lisa peered over her mother's shoulder. "Who was she?" "I don't know, sweetheart," Anna replied, scanning the neat handwriting. As she read further, her face paled. "Peter, you need to see this." The diary detailed Helena's solo hiking expedition through the same region. The entry started enthusiastically, but grew increasingly disturbed. Helena wrote of strange symbols carved into rocks, unexplained noises in the night, and a persistent feeling of being watched. Her final entry, dated June 23rd, mentioned following an unmarked path toward a circle of stones she'd glimpsed through the mist. "She disappeared," Anna whispered, looking up at her family with wide eyes. "The circumstances, they're eerily similar to what we've been experiencing." Mark shivered despite the morning warmth. "Do you think something happened to her?" "Nonsense," Peter said firmly, though his voice lacked conviction. "She probably just got lost and was eventually found." "These mountains can be disorienting." Anna clutched the diary tightly. "We should turn back, Peter. This feels wrong." "We've barely started our trip," he argued. "We can't let some old diary spook us. We're well prepared, and there are 4 of us." The tension between them was palpable as they stared at each other, neither willing to yield. Finally, Peter shouldered his pack decisively. "We press forward," he announced, already walking ahead. "Keep up, everyone." Anna reluctantly placed Helena's diary in her own backpack, unable to abandon this piece of someone else's unfinished story. As the family continued their journey, she couldn't help glancing over her shoulder, feeling as though Helena's fate somehow intertwined with their own. The second morning dawned with clear skies, But as the Kowalski family prepared breakfast, an unnatural fog descended upon their campsite. It rolled in thick waves, obscuring the surrounding forest and cliffs. Anna Kowalski felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. "This isn't normal," she whispered, pulling her jacket tighter. The weather report promised sunshine all day. Peter dismissed her concern with a wave. "Mountain weather is unpredictable. It'll burn off soon." But Anna couldn't shake the sensation of being observed. Her nursing instincts, honed through years of reading patients' unspoken signals, were screaming warnings. She kept Lisa close, noticing how her daughter's eyes darted nervously toward the wall of mist. Mark, ever curious, had set up his portable recorder near the perimeter of their camp. "Listen to this," he called, rewinding the tape. The family gathered around as strange rhythmic patterns emerged from the static, like stones grinding against each other in precise intervals. Probably just wind through the rocks," Peter suggested, though his confident tone faltered slightly. Anna shook her head. "That's not natural. It sounds deliberate." The recording continued, capturing what sounded like distant whispers beneath the grinding sounds. Lisa pressed against her mother, trembling. "We should go back," Anna stated firmly, meeting her husband's eyes. "Something isn't right here." Peter Kowalski's jaw tightened. The geologist had spent months researching this area, though Anna now realized he'd shared little of that research with her. His eyes gleamed with the same intensity she'd seen when he discovered something significant. "We can't turn back now," he insisted. "I'm certain we're close to the formation I've been looking for. It could change our understanding of this entire mountain range." "Your understanding," Anna corrected. "The children are frightened, and so am I." Mark looked between his parents, the recorder still clutched in his hands. "Dad, maybe Mom's right. This fog feels wrong." The tension between Anna and Peter filled the small clearing. Years of marriage had taught Anna to read her husband's expressions. His ambition was overriding his caution. "One more day," Peter pleaded. "If we don't find it by tomorrow afternoon, we'll head back. I promise." Anna felt torn between her protective instincts and her desire to support her husband's passion. The mist seemed to thicken around them, as if listening to their debate. "Fine," she relented reluctantly. "One day, but we stay together, no matter what." As they packed their belongings, Anna couldn't help noticing how the fog parted before them, almost as if creating a path, not toward the trail back to safety, but deeper into the unmapped wilderness that Peter was so eager to explore. Dark clouds rolled across the sky as the Kowalski family trudged along the narrow mountain path. What had begun as a clear summer day had transformed into something ominous. The wind picked up, carrying with it the scent of impending rain. "We need to find shelter," Anna Kowalski said, pulling her jacket tighter around her shoulders. "This doesn't look good." Peter glanced at his map, frustration evident in his furrowed brow. "The storm's pushing us east. We'll have to deviate from our planned route." Mark attempted to reach anyone on their radio, turning the dial frantically. "It's dead," the young man announced, shaking the device in frustration. "Nothing but static." As dusk approached, the family huddled beneath a rocky overhang. The temperature dropped rapidly, and Lisa pressed against her mother, shivering despite her layers. Anna wrapped an arm around her daughter, concern growing as she noticed the child's flushed cheeks. While Peter busied himself setting up their emergency shelter, Anna fiddled with the radio one last time. Suddenly, through the crackling static, a voice emerged, faint but unmistakable. The words were Polish but archaic, almost liturgical in cadence. "I can hear someone," she whispered, adjusting the frequency carefully. The voice continued, reciting what sounded like an ancient incantation. The nurse felt a chill run down her spine as she recognized fragments of old mountain rituals her grandmother had spoken of, prayers to appease the spirits of the Tatras. "Peter, listen to this," Anna called. but the voice faded before he could reach her. "Probably just interference," he said dismissively, returning to his work. "These mountains play tricks with radio signals." Anna shook her head. This wasn't random interference. The words, they were about the mountain guardians. My grandmother used to warn me about them. The geologist sighed heavily. "Anna, please, we have enough real problems without adding superstition to the mix." "It's not superstition," she insisted, her voice rising. "First the symbols, then Lisa's dreams, now this voice. It can't all be coincidence." Mark looked between his parents, sensing the growing tension. "Mom's right about one thing. Something weird is definitely happening." Peter stood firm. "We're scientists, not folklore enthusiasts. There's a logical explanation for everything we've encountered." As night fell completely, the family settled into uneasy silence. Anna couldn't shake the connection between the strange occurrences and the legends from her childhood. Tales of travelers who ventured too deep into sacred places, never to return. She watched Peter sketching notes about the rock formations by flashlight, his ambition blinding him to what she felt with increasing certainty. They were trespassing where they didn't belong. The family's journey led them to a precarious overhang, where Peter Kowalski's excitement overshadowed the danger. As they navigated the narrow ledge, Anna froze mid-step. There, spanning nearly 6 meters across the rock face, was an intricate symbol carved deep into the stone, identical to the smaller markings she'd noticed along the trail, but dramatically larger and more elaborate. "Peter, look at this," she whispered. Her nurse's composure momentarily shattered. The geologist approached with scientific curiosity, running his fingers along the ancient grooves. "Fascinating. Pre-Christian, possibly Bronze Age," he muttered, already taking measurements and photographs. Anna stepped back, a chill running through her that had nothing to do with the mountain air. The symbol triggered something in her memory, a connection she couldn't immediately place. Then it struck her with unsettling clarity. She had seen this exact pattern before, etched into the basement wall of the old psychiatric wing at her hospital in Krakow. Colleagues had dismissed it as graffiti. "But now, we shouldn't be here," she said quietly, her protective instincts flaring. "This isn't just some hiking trail." Peter dismissed her concerns with a wave. "It's just old folklore, Anna. Think of the paper I could write about this." Behind them, Lisa collapsed suddenly against a boulder, her small body trembling. The youngest Kowalski burned with fever despite the cool mountain air. Mark rushed to his sister's side, calling for their mother. Anna pressed a hand to Lisa's forehead. Her medical training kicking in despite her growing dread. "She's burning up. This isn't normal." Between labored breaths, Lisa described her intensifying dreams, stone figures emerging from the mountain itself, watching them, waiting. "They're angry, Mom," she whispered. "They say we're walking where we shouldn't." The atmosphere around them seemed to thicken, the air becoming difficult to breathe. Even Peter grew quiet, as shadows lengthened unnaturally across the symbol. Anna's intuition, honed through years of night shifts and critical patience, screamed danger. They were trespassing on something ancient and sacred, ground that didn't welcome visitors. Mark's recording device captured a strange vibration in the air. Not quite sound, but something that made the playback distort unnaturally. The family huddled together as darkness approached, the vast symbol seeming to pulse in the fading light. "We need to leave at first light," Anna insisted, no longer caring about Peter's geological ambitions. "This place, it doesn't want us here." For once, looking at his feverish daughter and the unnatural darkness gathering around them, Peter didn't argue. "Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from." The documentary shifts focus to Krakow, where Marta Nowak, a graduate student in geology, had been organizing old academic papers. While cataloging items from former professors, she stumbled upon Peter Kowalski's field notebook, tucked away in an unmarked folder. The camera zooms in on the weather pages as Marta flips through them, revealing detailed sketches of rock formations and coordinates. I was shocked when I realized what I was looking at. Marta explains to the interviewer, Professor Kowalski had been meticulously researching this specific area in the Tatras for nearly 8 months before the family trip. There were notes about unusual geological formations, references to local legends, and coordinates that didn't appear on any official hiking maps. Most disturbing was the discovery that Peter had deliberately kept his research secret from Anna. Entries in his notebook mentioned, "Keeping this quiet until I'm certain," and "A wouldn't approve of this detour." The geologist had apparently been pursuing something beyond a family adventure, something that had become an obsession. Meanwhile, the narrative returns to the mountains, where Anna discovers something unsettling near their campsite. The recreation shows her wandering slightly off trail to gather kindling when she notices a small clearing. There, arranged in a perfect circle, are the remains of a campfire, the embers still warm to the touch. She checked with Peter immediately, narrates the documentary. No other hikers had registered for this remote section of the trail that week. The park rangers had confirmed this before they set out. The camera pans across the empty forest as Anna calls out, receiving only the echo of her own voice in return. She kneels beside the campfire, examining the ashes with her trained nurse's eye. The coals suggest it had been burning just hours earlier. Mark approaches his mother, recorder in hand. "I've been picking up weird stuff," the boy says, offering her the device. The audio plays for viewers, crackling static punctuated by what sounds like footsteps moving away from the microphone, then stopping, then continuing at a measured pace. Lisa's fever has worsened by this point. The young girl clutches her mother's hand, whispering, "They're watching us. The stone men are waiting for us to follow them." As night falls, the family huddles closer together in their tent. Anna can't shake the feeling that they're being observed, or worse, deliberately led somewhere. Peter dismisses her concerns, but his eyes betray uncertainty as he studies his maps by flashlight. "We're exactly where we need to be," he insists, though Anna notices he's marking their location at a spot she doesn't recognize from their planned route. The sense that they are being followed, or perhaps drawn towards something, becomes inescapable. As the fog thickened around their campsite, Anna Kowalski sat alone by the dim light of her flashlight, poring over Helena Draud's weathered diary. The pages felt brittle beneath her fingertips, as if the very paper was reluctant to reveal its secrets. The nurse's medical training had taught her to trust evidence and logic, but something about these faded entries sent chills through her body that no rational explanation could dismiss. June 3, 1967. "The stones speak at night," Helena had written. "Nobody believes me, but I hear them, grinding, whispering in a language older than Poland itself." Anna's breath caught in her throat. These words mirrored her own unspoken thoughts with uncanny precision. The diary detailed Helena's final days in the Tatras, descriptions of strange blue lights dancing between trees, rhythmic sounds emanating from rock formations, and most disturbing of all, a perfectly arranged circle of stones she had discovered in a clearing that appeared on no map. "I'm being drawn there," read the final entry. "The circle calls to me. Tomorrow I will go, though Merrick warns against it. Some places in these mountains were never meant for human eyes." The documentary cut to archival footage from 1968, grainy black and white interviews with elderly villagers discussing Helena's disappearance. One white-haired woman, her face deeply lined with age, spoke in hushed tones. "The old ones knew better than to climb those peaks during Nakupali," she whispered. "The stones remember the old gods, the ones before Christ came to our lands. They hunger still." Another elder, a former forester with eyes clouded by cataracts, recounted tales passed down through generations. 7 hikers in 1932, a family of 3 in 1955, 2 geological surveyors in 1974, All gone without trace, all near the ancient sites. The camera panned across photographs of stone circles discovered throughout the Tatra region, their origins dating back to Bronze Age rituals. Anthropologists explained how these sites were once centers of pagan worship, places where the boundary between worlds was believed to be thinnest. Back at the Kowalski campsite, Peter approached his wife, noticing her troubled expression as she closed the diary. "You should see this," Anna said, her voice barely audible above the wind. He dismissed her concerns with a wave of his hand. "Just old superstitions. We're scientists, Anna." The mother of two clutched the diary tighter. "Helena was a doctor, Peter. She wasn't prone to fantasy." Unbeknownst to them, Mark had set his recording device on a nearby rock. Years later, when the audio was enhanced, analysts would detect something beneath the family's conversation. A faint, rhythmic pattern matching exactly what Helena had described in her final days. Anna clutched Helena Drode's diary to her chest, its weathered pages containing eerie parallels to their current situation. The final entries were particularly disturbing. Helena had documented strange lights dancing between the trees, haunting sounds that seemed to come from the mountain itself, and a mysterious circle of stones hidden deep in the forest. "Peter, look at this," Anna Kowalski urged, pointing to a sketch Helena had drawn. "This symbol matches exactly what we've been seeing. We need to turn back." Her husband barely glanced at the diary. "It's just coincidence, Anna. We're on the verge of something important here." The geologist was consumed by the possibility of documenting an undiscovered geological formation, something that could cement his academic reputation. "This isn't about your career." Anna's voice rose, causing Mark and Lisa to exchange worried glances from their position near the tent. "These mountains aren't safe." "Helena disappeared just like we might if we continue." Peter ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "You're letting superstition cloud your judgment. I expected better from you." The argument might have continued, but Peter suddenly patted his pockets with increasing urgency. "The compass. I can't find the compass." A frantic search of their belongings confirmed the worst. Their primary navigation tool was gone. Peter spread out their maps on a flat rock, the edges curling in the mountain breeze. The papers were worn, outdated, with his hasty notations scribbled in margins. "We can still navigate," he insisted, though his confidence seemed forced. "I've been taking detailed notes." Mark approached cautiously. "Dad, maybe Mom's right. These recordings I've been making, there's something not natural about them." "Not you too," Peter snapped. Lisa, still weak from her fever, huddled close to Anna. "The stone men are watching us," she whispered. "I saw them again last night." The nurse placed a protective arm around her daughter, feeling the heat still radiating from the girl's skin. What had once been a united family adventure was splintering before her eyes. That night, archival interviews would later reveal, was when several elders in nearby villages reported strange lights in the Tatra Mountains. Lights that matched descriptions in local folklore about ancient pagan sites becoming active. These tales of disappearances stretched back centuries, always connected to travelers who ventured too close to sacred grounds. As darkness fell over their campsite, the family retreated to separate corners. Mark clutched his recording device, Lisa clung to her mother, and Peter pored over his maps by flashlight. The unity that had carried them through countless adventures before had fractured, replaced by doubt and fear. The mountains seemed to close in around them, ancient and patient, keeping their secrets. The sky darkened without warning. What had been scattered clouds minutes earlier transformed into an ominous wall of blackness. Anna Kowalski looked up with dismay, her nurse's training kicking in as she mentally cataloged their dwindling supplies. This wasn't in the forecast Peter had checked before they left civilization. "We need to find shelter," she called over the rising wind. "Now!" Peter stood frozen, staring at his notebook, confusion etched across his face. "This doesn't make sense. The barometric readings I took this morning indicated clear conditions." The first heavy raindrops struck like bullets, and within moments, the family was caught in a deluge. Mark clutched his recording device protectively inside his jacket while Lisa began to shiver, her fever seemingly worsened by the sudden chill. "The ravine," Peter shouted, pointing to a depression between two rocky outcroppings. "It's our best option." They scrambled downward, the once solid earth turning treacherous beneath their feet. Anna kept a firm grip on Lisa's hand, feeling her daughter's skin burning, despite the cold rain. The family huddled beneath a slight overhang, watching as fog rolled in, obscuring the path they'd just descended. "I don't recognize anything," Mark whispered, his voice barely audible above the storm. "Dad, where are we?" Peter unfolded their map, now soggy and tearing at the creases. Without the compass he'd lost the previous day, he could only guess at their location. Anna noticed his hands trembling, not from cold, but from uncertainty. "We should have turned back yesterday," she said, unable to keep the accusation from her voice. "When I first mentioned it." "This is just a storm," Peter replied defensively. "It happens in the mountains." "Not like this," Anna countered. "Nothing about this feels natural." Lisa whimpered, pressing closer to her mother. "The stone men are angry," she murmured. "I can hear them moving." Anna stroked her daughter's hair, trying to project a calm she didn't feel. "We'll rest here until the storm passes," she assured the children. Though her eyes betrayed her doubt, Mark pulled out his device, pressing record, despite the moisture threatening its circuits. "The sounds are different now," he observed. "Listen." Through the howling wind came rhythmic grinding, like stone against stone, eerily similar to what they'd heard at their previous campsite, but louder, more insistent. Anna closed her eyes, reaching for the intuition her grandmother had always told her to trust. In her mind's eye, she saw a path, not the one they'd planned, but one that felt right somehow. "When this breaks," she said with newfound resolve, "we're not following the map anymore. We follow my lead." Peter started to object, but something in his wife's expression silenced him. For the first time since their journey began, the geologist looked truly afraid, not of the storm, but of what might be guiding them through it. A violent, unforecasted storm struck without warning, dark clouds gathering over the peaks with supernatural speed. The Kowalski family found themselves trapped in a narrow ravine as rain lashed down in sheets, turning the ground beneath their feet into treacherous mud. "We need to find shelter," Peter Kowalski shouted over the howling wind, his voice barely audible above nature's fury. The geologist pointed toward an outcropping of rock, but Anna grabbed his arm, shaking her head vehemently. "Not there," she insisted, her nurse's instincts screaming danger. "Something's wrong with this place." The landscape around them seemed to shift and transform with each lightning flash. Landmarks they had noted just hours earlier had vanished completely, swallowed by the impenetrable fog and rain. Mark clutched his recording device to his chest, trying to protect it from the downpour, while Lisa pressed against her mother, shivering with both cold and fear. "Mom, I don't recognize anything," the young girl whispered, her fever returning with alarming intensity. "The mountains are different now." Anna wrapped her arm tightly around her daughter, feeling the heat radiating from her small body. The family huddled together under a makeshift shelter of backpacks and the emergency tarp they had packed. Peter unfolded his map, now soggy and tearing at the creases, his face a mask of confusion. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered, tracing routes with his finger. "We should be able to see the western ridge from here." The family's compass was gone, lost during their hasty descent when the storm first hit. Without it, they were at the mercy of Peter's increasingly unreliable maps and hastily scribbled notes. Anna's resilience emerged as she took charge, organizing their dwindling supplies and trying to create a sense of order amid the chaos. She spoke softly to the children, recounting stories from her own childhood to distract them from the terror of their situation. "We'll wait out the storm," she assured them, though her own fear was palpable in the tremor of her voice. "The mountains always provide a path." Mark looked up at his mother, water dripping from his hair. "But what if we can't find it?" Anna hesitated, remembering her grandmother's warnings about the Tatras. Perhaps intuition was their only guide now. The very intuition Peter had dismissed as superstition. She glanced at her husband, seeing for the first time real doubt in his eyes. As night fell, the family huddled closer. The strange grinding sounds they had heard earlier seemed to intensify with the darkness, echoing through the ravine like ancient machinery awakening. Anna closed her eyes, focusing on her breathing, on the feeling that had been growing since they first set foot on this trail. "We need to follow the water downstream," she finally said, her voice steady with newfound conviction. "It's our only chance." Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The portable audio recorder, once belonging to Mark Kowalski, had remained remarkably intact, preserved by the harsh mountain climate. Forensic technicians carefully extracted the device from among the scattered belongings found at the stone circle. Despite 23 years of exposure to the elements, the cold temperatures had protected its internal components in ways no one could have anticipated. When specialists finally managed to recover the audio, what they heard sent chills through the investigation team. The strange sounds Mark had captured weren't random mountain noises or weather phenomena as initially theorized. Audio analysis revealed distinct rhythmic patterns, deliberate, structured, and hauntingly familiar to experts in ancient European cultures. "These are unmistakably ritual cadences," explained Dr. Marta Wojcik, an ethnomusicologist specializing in pre-Christian Carpathian traditions. The 3-beat followed by 7-beat pattern was used in ceremonies marking territorial boundaries between the world of the living and what they believed was the domain of ancient mountain spirits. The recordings aligned perfectly with documented rituals dating back over 3,000 years. What made this discovery particularly disturbing was how these sounds shouldn't have existed in modern times. These specific rhythmic sequences had disappeared from practice centuries ago. Local archaeologist Tomasz Brzezinski confirmed that the site where the Kowalski family's belongings were discovered sat directly atop what his team had recently identified as a Bronze Age sanctuary. This location was deliberately obscured from local knowledge, Tomasz explained. "Our research into village records shows generations of deliberate misdirection, altered maps, false landmarks, all designed to keep people away from this specific area." Folklorist Elżbieta Nowak provided further context from interviews with elderly villagers. The oldest residents speak of forbidden paths in hushed tones. When pressed, they admit their grandparents warned them about certain parts of the mountains where people would enter but never return. These warnings were dismissed as superstition by younger generations, including local guides like Stanis Nowak. The evidence suggested Anna Kowalski's intuition had been correct all along. The family had unwittingly crossed into a place locals had purposely avoided for generations. Peter's geological curiosity had led them directly to a site shrouded in ancient taboo. "What's most unsettling," Dr. Wojcik added, examining notes from both Anna's diary and Helena Drozd's recovered journal, is how both women described identical sensations of being watched, followed, and ultimately drawn towards something in the mountains, despite their experiences being separated by 31 years. The recorder offered tantalizing yet incomplete answers. The rhythmic sounds continued for 17 minutes before abruptly cutting off mid-pattern. What happened in the moments after remains unknown. A silence as profound and mysterious as the family's disappearance itself. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. Among the scattered belongings recovered at the site, Peter Kowalski's camera proved to be the most chilling piece of evidence. Forensic technicians, working meticulously in their laboratory, managed to salvage the film despite 23 years of exposure to the harsh mountain elements. What they discovered sent ripples through the investigation team. The final photograph on the roll showed Lisa with her back to a stunning mountain vista. The young girl appeared tired, but smiling faintly at her father behind the lens. It was what appeared in the reflection of her glasses that transformed this seemingly innocent family memento into something deeply disturbing. Clearly visible in the curved surface of her lenses stood a human figure, tall, motionless, perched atop a distant rock formation. "We enhanced the image multiple times," explained Marek Wojcik, head of the Forensic Imaging Department. "The figure is undeniably human in shape, but oddly proportioned. It's watching the family, yet according to all statements, no other hikers were reported in that remote section of the Tatras that day." The photograph was time-stamped just 4 hours before the family's final documented campsite was established. Analysis of Mark's recovered audio recorder revealed something equally unsettling. When technicians isolated background sounds from the recording made that same evening, they identified rhythmic patterns matching those used in pre-Christian Carpathian rituals. "These aren't random noises," insisted Dr. Elżbieta Nowak, a folklorist from Krakow University. "The cadence and structure align perfectly with ceremonial patterns documented in Bronze Age sites throughout the region. These sounds were traditionally believed to thin the veil between worlds." Archaeological experts confirmed that the stone circle where the family's belongings were discovered sits atop an ancient ritual site, a fact unknown to modern hikers and absent from tourist maps. Local elders, now speaking more freely since the discovery, admitted their ancestors deliberately obscured knowledge of such places. "Our grandparents taught us to avoid certain paths," said 78-year-old Janusz Kowalczyk from a nearby village. "They said the old stones remember, and what sleeps beneath them is best left undisturbed." The mysterious figure in Lisa's glasses remains unidentified. No footprints besides the family's were ever found, despite extensive searching. The revelation has sparked heated debate among investigators. Was this an unknown hiker who perhaps witnessed the family's final moments? Or something connected to the ancient rhythms captured on Mark's device? The mountains have kept this secret for 23 years. As the investigation continues, the reflection in a young girl's glasses stands as a haunting reminder that the Kowalski family may not have been alone on that fateful day in 1998. As the investigation unfolded, the connections between the Kowalski family and Helena Drozd became increasingly undeniable. The team of researchers analyzing both cases discovered striking parallels that defied coincidence. Helena's diary entries from 1967 mirrored Anna Kowalski's own writings with unsettling precision. Both women had documented the same symbols, the same unease, and the same feeling of being watched by something ancient and patient. "The mountains have a memory longer than ours," Anna had written in her final diary entry. "Recovered from the weathered backpack. I feel it now. The same presence that took Helena is circling us." These words, once dismissed as the anxious ramblings of an overtired mother, now carried the weight of prophecy. The documentary presented side-by-side comparisons of both women's handwriting, Anna's neat, measured script reflecting her nursing background, and Helena's more flowing style. Despite the 31-year gap between their disappearances, both had drawn the same circular symbol with radiating lines, a pattern that archaeologists later identified as connected to pre-Christian mountain worship. Perhaps the most chilling evidence came from Peter Kowalski's camera. The device, protected from the elements by a crevice where it was discovered, contained a final photograph. The image showed Lisa with her back to the camera, looking up at the mountain ridge. But in the reflection of her glasses, a figure stood motionless on a distant outcropping, watching. Forensic analysis confirmed no one in the family had mentioned seeing another person that day. The figure appeared tall and still, almost statuesque, but clearly human-shaped. Facial recognition software failed to identify any features, as the reflection was too small and distorted. "We've enhanced this image dozens of times," explained Dr. Marta Wojcik, lead investigator. "The figure is wearing what appears to be outdated clothing, possibly similar to hiking gear from the 1960s. This revelation sent shockwaves through the investigation team. Could this be connected to Helena Drozd? Or perhaps something that had been stalking the mountains for generations? Mark's audio recordings, when analyzed with modern equipment, revealed something equally disturbing. Beneath the rhythmic sounds were whispered words in an archaic Polish dialect, speaking of those who walk between the stones and the watchers of the ancient paths. The identity and nature of the figure remain a terrifying enigma, one that continues to haunt the families of the missing and the researchers dedicated to understanding what truly happened in the mist-shrouded Tatra Mountains. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The documentary weaves together the parallel narratives of the Kowalski family and Helena Drozd, revealing a disturbing pattern of disappearances spanning generations. These mountains have their own hunger, explains Marta Wojcik, an elderly villager who remembers the search for both the Kowalskis and, decades earlier, Helena. Some people are simply claimed by the Tatras. Folklorist Tomasz Jankowski points to historical records showing at least 7 documented cases of hikers vanishing without trace in the same region since 1892. What makes the Kowalski case so compelling is that Anna's intuition mirrors Helena's warnings almost word for word, though they were separated by 30 years. The camera follows a group of villagers as they prepare for Nok Kupawi, the midsummer festival with pre-Christian roots. Wreaths of wildflowers float on water, while fires burn against the twilight. The symbols painted on celebrants' faces are unmistakably similar to those Anna Kowalski described finding carved into stones along the trail. One elder demonstrates a rhythmic drumming pattern that, when played alongside Mark's recovered recordings, creates an unsettling harmony. The old ways never truly disappeared here, explains Maria Nowak, whose family has lived in the shadow of the Tatras for 9 generations. We honor the mountains, but we know their power. Peter's mistake was approaching them as something to be conquered or studied. The documentary presents 3 theories about the family's fate. The first, championed by search and rescue veteran Jakub Kowalczyk, suggests natural dangers, a sudden storm, disorientation, and the unforgiving terrain are enough to claim even experienced hikers. The second theory focuses on Peter's obsession, proposing that his determination to find the geological anomaly led them into increasingly dangerous territory despite Anna's protests. But it's the third possibility that lingers most hauntingly. There are places in these mountains where the veil between worlds grows thin, whispers an anonymous local, face obscured. The symbols, the sounds Mark recorded, these are warnings, not invitations. The film shows Anna's final diary entry, recovered in 2021. I feel we're being drawn towards something ancient. Peter can't see it, but the children sense it too. The mountains are speaking to us. I only pray we're not too late to listen. Historian Elżbieta Mazur offers a sobering perspective. Whether we believe in the supernatural or not, the Kowalskis' story reminds us that human knowledge has limits. Some mysteries remain unsolved, not because we lack evidence, but because we lack the framework to understand what we're seeing. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The people of the Tatra region have always maintained a complex relationship with the mountains that define their landscape. In interviews conducted after the discovery of the Kowalski family's belongings, local villagers speak in hushed tones about the wilderness that has shaped their culture for generations. We respect the mountains, but we also fear them, explains an elderly woman who has lived in the shadow of the Tatras her entire life. They give, and they take. The Kowalskis were not the first to be claimed, nor will they be the last. The documentary explores how the anniversary of Nok Kupawi, the Midsummer Night Festival with pre-Christian roots, continues to be observed in the region. Footage shows villagers gathering at dusk, lighting bonfires that echo the unexplained campfire traces found near where the family vanished. The camera lingers on carved symbols remarkably similar to those Anna Kowalski described in her diary, now etched into ceremonial objects carried by community elders. Folklorists interviewed explain how these patterns and symbols found at the Kowalski site match ancient protective wards meant to establish boundaries between the mundane world and something else entirely. These were not decorative, says one expert. They were warnings. The narrative carefully examines three possible explanations for the family's fate. Was it the natural dangers of the wilderness, a storm, a rock slide, a tragic misstep on treacherous terrain? Was it human obsession, Peter's secretive research driving them beyond safety into unknown territory? Or was it something older and more mysterious, forces acknowledged in whispered stories but dismissed by modern minds? Stannis Noke, now elderly but still sharp-minded, offers perhaps the most haunting perspective. Peter asked me about the old stories before they left, he reveals. I told him some places in the mountains are not meant for visitors. He laughed. The geologist in him couldn't accept what generations of my people have always known. The documentary presents footage from a memorial service held in Krakow after the discovery, where colleagues of Anna from the hospital share memories of her uncanny intuition with patients. She could sense things before they happened, one former coworker recalls. Perhaps she sensed what awaited them in the mountains. As night falls over the Tatras in the final sequence, the camera captures modern hikers placing small stones at the base of trail markers, a new tradition born from the Kovalski legend. For protection, a young woman explains, and to remember those who never returned.